If any penny could help feed these animals and keep them out of bad conditions, then I'm willing to give it. Good morning, Clatts! A little quick note before we start the video today. Make sure that you turn on that notification button so you get notifications for me when I upload my new videos. YouTube's algorithm, the way it works, it doesn't always give you guys my videos in your subscription feed. So even though you're subscribed, you might not always see it. So make sure that notification button is turned on so you get to see the video immediately when it comes out. And lastly, because our community is growing so nicely and strongly, and we wanted to build new ways for us to communicate, one of the best clatts there is, Matan, one of the pastrami boys, has built a Reddit page for you guys. The subreddit is called r/atravelingclatt, so you can look it up on Reddit. It'll be linked in the description, of course. Go over there, feel free to start a conversation. If you have any questions, if you want to post memes and gifs of me, that's really what we wanted to happen on that page. If you want to make fun of me, this is the place to do it, because, you know, I make fun of myself all the time, so you should also. Anyways, that's a little announcement. Thank you, Matan, so much. And let's start this video. All right, guys, we're heading out for the day. Look who's back with us. It's Moshe and Vidal.
Hello.
This is gonna be, I think, our last adventure here in Israel together. These boys are leaving really soon, and it's really sad. But yeah, we're heading off to an important location that we're gonna talk about in just a sec. All right, so we have come to the city of Rishon LeZion. I actually used to live here when I lived in Israel. This is a city that I lived in. Behind me you can see the sign for a zoo. So the zoo that we're coming to right now is called Chaikef Zoo. And the thing is, I'm not really a fan of zoos. And I used to be as a kid because I obviously love animals and I show that off in my channel all the time. But since I went to Africa and I got to see animals on safari, and when I was in Costa Rica in the jungles and stuff, and I got to see these animals in the wild, it's really hard for me to justify coming to a place and seeing them in small enclosure. Now here's the deal, there are some zoos that are definitely built for conservation and they give the animals the proper space and time that they need and the care, but that's not the case in this zoo. Unfortunately, the zoo is really small and it was built years ago. I mean, I remember coming here as a kid, and so I think the structures and the exhibits are kind of tiny for what the animals need, and we'll be able to show you some more as we go in there. I just want to stress this isn't me saying ban all zoos and come to this zoo or hate on this zoo specifically, because this is just a situation they're in. But we're gonna go on in there and show you why I don't think it's a good idea to support zoos as a whole, or maybe do some more research on zoos and not maybe just go to any zoo, like see the specific goals and accomplishments that these zoos are trying to do, like the kangaroo sanctuary that we went to and the alpaca farm. Those places have a certain conservation standpoint behind them and they're trying to do something good. But just locking up wild animals that need a lot of space and room to exist in tiny little cages, I can't ever support that. It's really hard for me to do it. We're gonna show you some of the conditions that the cages are in, how empty the zoo is because not a lot of people visit it anymore, and just in general what it's like to be in a zoo that kind of seems like it's dying. So we are now here in the main area of the zoo. This is the entrance. There's a little cactus garden here, and in the entrance there's some cages with these really big birds. Now, you're gonna say, Tal, you're completely contradicting yourself. You just said don't go to a zoo, but you're going to a zoo. You're giving the zoo money. Yes, there's a couple factors to this. The situation with the zoo is that it's kind of like a dying zoo. They've lost a lot of their animals from what I remember as a kid. A lot of the animals aren't even here anymore, and I don't think they're buying new animals or bringing new animals to the zoo because the zoo isn't making that much money anymore. As you can see, it's completely empty. I remember when I used to come here as a kid, there were tons of people here. I guess that's just a situation. Maybe people aren't interested anymore, maybe people don't support it, but that's just the reality of the situation here. And I want to show you guys first glimpse why these zoos shouldn't exist. Maybe sanctuaries, maybe rehabilitation center for animals that are endangered, yes, but seeing animals, wild animals in situations like this, it's horrible. It's really hard to look at them in these tiny little cages. So behind me are all these bird cages, and obviously you can see these are massive birds that need thousands of miles for them to be happy and to live in. It's hard to see them in these tiny little cages where they can barely fly around, and everything freaks them out. And when kids do come here, they probably yell at them behind the cage, and it's a really hard situation to see an animal in like that. I mean, there's animals that hunt in the wild and fly at super fast speeds on top of mountains, and to be locked in a cage and live your whole life in a cage, it can't be right. But behind me, as eerie as it is an empty otter exhibit. And I remember this exhibit when I was here as a kid, and there was a bunch of little otters running around. But whatever the case be, I don't know what happened to them, whether they died or they moved them to a different zoo. They didn't bring new animals here because they're not making money. And when you don't make money, you just have a bunch of empty exhibits. And the fearful thing for me is why I don't mind giving money to this zoo specifically right now is like, if any penny could help feed these animals and keep them out of bad conditions, then I'm willing to give it, because I don't know what's going on behind the scenes here. I have questions, but I won't get answers to them. So I'd rather give my few bucks to be able to feed these animals while they're here and live out their lives than not. All right, so this is a sign for the monkey exhibits. They start right up here. I want to show you guys what's going on here. It's tiny, isn't it? So these are green monkeys, and this whole row here are these tiny little cages with a bunch of monkeys in them. I'll overlay a clip, but there's people kind of poking and prying and trying to play around with them through the cages, which is another issue that causes a lot of emotional distress. As you know, monkeys are not simple creatures. They're very complex animals. And so for them to have to experience that, and whoever throws food into their cage and eat, it's just not a good lifestyle. So this right here is the spider monkey enclosure. Also, these little guys are what inspired this entire video. Last year, I came to the zoo. When I got to spend time with them here, with these monkeys, I sat here for literally half an hour looking at them, talking to them. And last year, they didn't have this kind of extra level of caging on here. And so it was just the bars, and the monkeys would stick out their hands. You could shake their hand, you could give them food if you want. I didn't give them food, but there were kids giving them like little snacks and stuff. And you could really like stare into their eyes, look at them, have them give you something, you give them something. It was a very interesting experience, but it also showed me how complex they are. It's really hard to see them in these little cages. And, you know, look at him. He's got so much to say. And it's hard to see them strapped between metal bars and cement. What I love about these spider monkeys too is that they have this thing called a prehensile tail, which is that they use their tail like another limb. It's almost like another hand. They use it to like grab onto stuff and to be able to move. It's really cool. And it shows their complexity and how smart they are, how intelligent these animals are. So this right here behind me is the Chimpanzee Exhibit, or at least it used to be. I remember when I used to come here as a kid, there was a very angry chimpanzee that used to live in there, and there's actually a tower at the top, and he used to throw his crap over and hit people with his poop. When I was here last year, he wasn't here, and there isn't anything now, and they've also colored all the walls here. So you can't see anything inside. We peeked in and you could actually see a chicken in there. I don't know what's going on, but it's another sign showing you that like there's animals either dying or leaving the zoo and they're not replacing them. And that shows a sign of weakness on the business end of the zoo, I think. So in this enclosure right here, we have an animal called the coati. It's a South American animal. It's kind of like a raccoon and a possum. They're really smart, and the thing is they're in this tiny cage. Like for how many there are, I think there's like 10 in here. There's a bunch. There's so many on every corner, and the cages down here are open so you could touch them and feed them if you wanted to. And here we have some more empty cages, and if you come right down here, there's actually a baby coati in this cage, and he's super friendly. Come here, bud. Hey there. You can pet him. You shouldn't do this with animals though, because he can probably give you a real nasty bite if you wanted to. So what we're in right now is the row of the big cats. There's a bunch of cages here. There's like 5 cages down this row, all very small, that are supposed to house big cats. The lion that used to live here, his name was Shimshon. I was here last year and he was still alive. He was lying down, but apparently he's passed away since. The only big cat that we've been able to see in any of these cages is a tiger that's still alive. But once again, I remember as a kid, this whole thing was packed with animals. And so it just proves the point that zoos they're not okay, especially not a zoo like this. These cages aren't ecosystems. They aren't built to even kind of resemble what the animal's natural habitat is. They're just cages. They're just complete cages with cement and metal bars. So behind me right now is a little lake, but also a gibbon exhibit. A gibbon is an ape. It's a big animal. Look at the enclosure that it has. That's him right there hanging on the tree. This is his entire life. He's this little cement and he's trapped by water. In the nature, these animals can't swim in the water. So it's a natural deflectant for it to not run away. But I mean, look at that. Imagine being trapped on a little island like that your entire life. Once again, it's a zoo. It doesn't have to hunt for food. It doesn't have to live like it would in the wild, but it has to be psychologically hurting the animals. Because when it's like, their instinct is to climb and explore and see thousands of miles, and being trapped here is like, it's like being in jail. All right, guys, so we are heading out of the zoo right now. It's a pretty depressing experience overall, correct?
It's not fun.
It's not fun. And obviously you have to look at it with an adult and a responsible, more ethical perspective, because if you're a kid waltzing through a zoo, it's awesome. But That's just a reality of the situation. And I want to clarify, this is not to hate on this specific zoo, and don't show this zoo hate, and don't go around propagating for zoos to be shut down, but it's just something we should as people stop supporting in the future. And I want to add this on as well. For those of you wondering, all right, like what if we want our children to experience a zoo, or I want to experience a zoo and see these animals I otherwise wouldn't be able to? Yes, but if you'd rather wait till the opportunity for you to see an animal like that in the wild, and instead look around your local area, there's wildlife everywhere. Every part of the world there's wildlife. There's nature all around us. And if you live in the US, it's no excuse, because we have parks set up where you can go look at wildlife, whether it be moose or deer, wolves or bears. And institutions like this are set up around the world. And if they're not set up organized by your government, then they're set up from private people, or you can actually just go into the wild and look for animals. I know it's not that simple, and I don't want to just paint anything with a normal brush, but it's something you should think about. If you can start making changes in your lives to stop supporting places like this, then I think overall we're gonna live in a more positive world. So I'm back at the house now, end of another day. This was not an easy video to make by any means at all. Obviously it's a hard subject to be able to talk about, but I hope that I encourage you guys to do a little bit more research. Once again, just to clarify, I was not saying that all zoos are horrible. I just want to make sure that you guys do research about the zoos that you go to, and definitely don't promote a zoo like this. Zoos like this don't promote conservation by any means. It's just for pure entertainment, and I don't think they should exist. Let's make a positive change for these animals. I'll see you guys next time. I love you a long time. The word of the day today is going to be sad, which is atzuv in Hebrew. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, CLATT.